Hi there, good morning everyone. This is Liz Davis. I am a nutritionist and I specialise in digestive health for busy women. So I help busy women fix their IBS, reflux, painful digestion, SIBO, other kind of gut conditions and hormone problems and fibromyalgia, and anything else like that that can be linked back to your gut health, quite often is, at least in part. And I do this with lab testing, cutting edge lab testing, and then dietary lifestyle upgrades, supplements, etc., to get things functioning really well for you again. So I was just going to do a quick rundown all about artificial sweeteners. So it's not all bad news. I'll just start out saying that. So there are some artificial sweeteners you can use which are actually beneficial, but there are some also that you probably would be better off avoiding. So I'll just give you a rundown on why that is, and give you a few kind of safe options, if you like, so you can, be confident in your food choices without it being complete torture kind of thing. So basically, when you take artificial sweeteners, when you ingest artificial sweeteners, your body essentially is thinking that it's getting some very high carb or sugary food. So it goes through the same processes as if you had. So it can actually, because of that, end up making you crave more sweet foods, if you like. Because when you eat the food containing the sweetener, your body is still secreting a lot of insulin, which can then set you off on the insulin roller coaster. So the blood sugar roller coaster you can get on, which kind of makes you kind of go, soaring and plunging all day long with your energy levels and mood, etc. So obviously that's not ideal. But in the case with sweeteners, it can be even worse, because that your body is gearing up for some sweet food. It thinks it's arriving, and then the sweet food never does. So your body ends up in a bit of a tiz. It doesn't know what's going on. And so that's kind of one reason why you kind of really want to avoid them. So that's what then leads to the cravings for the high carb, very sugary food, because this very high carb sugary food never arrives. And so you're just going to end up craving some afterwards. So with that, you get all those kind of associated issues with low blood sugar. So feeling hangry, feeling a bit anxious, probably a bit twitchy, and that's not going to go until you kind of rebalance that and get more carby food going on. So that could be why in scientific studies they often find that artificial sweetener use is associated with type 2 diabetes and obesity as well, and also metabolic syndrome, which isn't ideal. So in addition to that, if you have trouble with your digestive system, like most of my clients do, so if you're suffering with IBD or IBS or whatever, a lot of these can be quite inflammatory in the gut as well, which is also a problem, because it's going to make your symptoms a lot worse. It's also not great. They don't seem to be great for your cardiovascular system either. They can increase arterial plaque, which can give rise to heart disease and things like that. So obviously that's not ideal either. So what you're checking for when you're buying food, check on the labels to see that there's none of these present. So aspartame, Splenda, saccharin, sorbitol, sucralose, those are the kinds of things you want to be avoiding. And you're going to find them in products such as low sugar, low fat foods such as yogurts, low sugar fizzy drinks, even some vitamin supplements. The cheaper ones will quite often have a lot of these sweeteners in. Sweets obviously, and that kind of thing. So it's worth checking labels if you are buying those kinds of foods. Aspartame in particular is linked to a lot of issues with the brain, so I would avoid that if you're worried about your brain health at all, because it's linked with impaired memory, and if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, then those kind of issues are going to be passed on to the baby as well. So very important to avoid aspartame as far as you can. It's linked to headaches, migraines, dizziness, and of course nausea and digestive disturbances as well. So another good reason, if you are suffering with your gut, to avoid anything with aspartame in, certainly. But as I say, it's not all doom and gloom. There are sweeteners out there that are actually pretty good. So the two I would recommend are xylitol and stevia. They seem to be okay. So there's some pros and cons with the xylitol though. So xylitol is really good for your teeth, which is great. But if you have IBS or IBD and are sensitive to FODMAPs, I would avoid it because it can give you those symptoms as well. It can aggravate things. If you don't have an issue with your gut and you're fine with FODMAPs, it should be okay for you. Otherwise, stick to stevia. I don't, as it stands, I'm not aware of any drastic problems with stevia. I think that's a fairly safe option there. But in an ideal world, what you want to be doing really is training your system to not be really relying on very sugary foods. So stick to naturally sweet foods. When you're transitioning from very sweet foods to more natural foods, then dates are just fantastic. So dates give you a real nice sugary hit. Also sugars, you know, good quality honey is good. All these are kind of stepping stone foods. So coconut sugar is another good one. Maple syrup is great as well. Those are more natural sweeteners. So if you're making your own sort of sweets and puddings or whatever at home, I would stick to those while you transition over to more kind of naturally sweet foods, and you should find that quite helpful. But ultimately we want to be sticking to foods that are nice and naturally sweet, such as fruits and things like that, and you can get your sugary hit then. Okay, so as I say, not all doom and gloom. There are some sweeteners to avoid really, and some which are pretty good, and with the ultimate aim of getting you relying more on naturally sweet foods to get your sugar hit. Okay, or get your sweet hit, should I say. So if you did like this video and found it useful, do like and share. Otherwise, I shall see you next time. Okay, bye.